Thank you, Lavuyo. Let's just get my presentation up quickly. All right, here we go. Honourable Minister, Members of Parliament, our mutual representatives, and all our guests, thank you very much for allowing me to speak to you today. Thank you especially to Lavuyo for giving me this opportunity. I'm going to tackle 3 topics today. The first one obviously would be just to explain who we are as Enterprise Development Property Fund. The second would be the land reform issue, but specifically from a transformation perspective. So we'll be talking about the latest transformation report that has come out, that the Property Sector Charter Council has put out for us, and what has happened in the property sector with regard to transformation. And then the last part is to look at a practical example of how you as individuals could get involved in the property sector in an easy way. So, as you know, property is a very capital intensive business to be involved in. But we as Enterprise Development Property Fund are trying to make things easier for people to become investors in the property sector. And mainly so that you can become landlords and not tenants anymore. That you can become the owner of the property as opposed to a service provider to the landlord. So that's really our goal, and basically what we want to give you just tonight, a very quick example of how you could become a property owner by just using the existing cash flow that you have. So that's the third topic. So EDPF is an impact fund to support black entrepreneurs in the property sector to basically change this 5.8 trillion rand industry that we are in. Our vision is to change the landscape of the property ownership in South Africa by creating opportunities for historically disadvantaged. And our mission is to be the preferred supplier of funding and support to black entrepreneurs. Unfortunately, at this point in time, we don't supply funding yet, but what we do is during our training program, which takes 3 years, we teach entrepreneurs how to raise their own money. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to be a constant supplier of funding to people. We actually want you to go and raise your own money. And that's basically what we teach in our program. So our main focus is incubation, property ownership, job creation, and most importantly, property sector transformation. We're talking about black youth development, black women development, access to markets. We want to create thousands of jobs annually, not just over a period of time, but annually. We want to create thousands of jobs. We are quite heavily involved in community development projects. We are working quite closely with the National House of Traditional Leaders and the United Royal Kingships to develop opportunities within the rural communities. We want to create co-funding opportunities with large corporates. So we do work with the large corporates, like Attack is one of our funders, to support black entrepreneurs when they want to actually do a development but don't have the money. Our goal over the next 10 years is through our education program and the entrepreneurs we bring on board to create a portfolio of properties of over 100 billion rand. That is already on the go. We are already starting to work with projects, creating value to hopefully get to that stage in 10 years' time. We teach 14 disciplines. I'm going to go through them very quickly. Facilities management, occupational health and safety, project management, financial literacy, due diligence and feasibility assessments, property management, energy efficiency, water management, legal aspects of the property sector. Most of you won't know this. There are 27 laws or acts that relate directly or indirectly to the property sector. And if you don't understand at least the very basics, you are going to fall foul of the law and your property business is going to fail. So we quite heavily focus on the legal aspects. Obviously, entrepreneurship is a key factor. Property investment fundamentals, how to invest in property. And more recently, we've added real estate internships. Because what we've discovered is that less than 10% of the real estate market out there are less than 10% of black owned, and less than 10% of the real estate agents out there is black. So we've decided that we're going to tackle this issue head on with the EAAB and REBOSA, the Real Estate Business Owners Association of South Africa, in order to create opportunities for black entrepreneurs to become agents, but not just agents, actually own the agencies and be principals so that they can be the employers and not the employees. So we've recently taken on that challenge, and hopefully by January, that will be rolling on our 3-year program. It's the EDPF level 5 qualification that you require in order to become a principal. So a quick look then, going to part 2. I'll try to get through that as quickly as possible because this is the most important part. In the report that came out in 2016, I think it was, the State of Transformation report basically said that overall, in the entire property sector, we were at a level 4 from a BEE perspective. For those of us who understand the BEE codes and how that works, it works from level 1 down to level 8, and if you're not even a level 8, you are non-compliant. So the BEE codes have a whole range of things, including ownership, management, control, skills development, enterprise development. There are 7 elements that make up the points that you have to get in order to become a level 1 BEE compliant business. Overall, in 2016, the entire industry on average was at level 4. A couple of weeks ago, the latest transformation report came out and said that we have dropped now from level 4 to level 5. So what does that tell us? Things have gotten worse in terms of transformation in the sector. Not better, worse. If you look at ownership, we've dropped from 17.7% to 15%. Management control, we've dropped from 5.6, not a massive drop. Actually, it is. It's 3.28. Sorry, I thought I saw a 5. My apologies. Employment equity, even worse, from 7 down to 1. Skills development from 9 down to 5. Unfortunately, the enterprise and supply development one, you can't really compare because that's a new one that's come in. But if you take preferential procurement and enterprise development together, and you compare that to enterprise and supply development, you will see that has also dropped considerably. Socioeconomic development has basically remained stagnant. Economic development has dropped from 3.6 down to 1.3%. What does all of this mean? It's a bunch of numbers, and mostly the accountants and the verification agents are the only ones who really understand these numbers. But basically what this means is that overall, in the property sector, from a transformation perspective, things have gotten worse. Now, if you look at the property sector and what it represents, it actually is crucial that this sector is the one that has to change. Because if you think about property, number one, the land reform issue. We can get into a massive debate about it, and we'll get very angry in the room when we talk about the issue. But ultimately, that is one of the most important issues that we have to deal with in this country today. And the transformation of the industry is so important because it is the land that gives us economic opportunities. Without the land, you cannot generate income. Because without the land, you cannot start a business. Yes, even the tech companies are some of the biggest landowners and land renters today. So if you think of Google, for example, their building that they built in Silicon Valley, this massive, massive complex that cost billions of dollars. They needed a piece of land to do that. Even the tech companies who claim that they work in cyberspace. Yes, they do, but physically they need a space to work from. Even Bill Gates started in his mother's garage when he started his business. You need a piece of land to work from in order to create economic opportunities for yourself. So the land issue, excuse me for a sec, the land issue is a very, Very important issue. So if we drop in terms of our transformation in the country, it means that black people are even worse off than they were 3 years ago with regard to ownership, management, and control of property in this country. Now, we can argue about the numbers, we can argue about what percentage it is. Some people will tell you that only 7% of the properties in the country are owned by black people. Other people will say it's 15%, and other people will even say it's 40%. The fact of the matter is the numbers are skewed, and it's getting worse. So ownership, for example, you will see basically all the different segments within the property sector are about even, except the listed environment. So if you look at the little blue columns over there, or the little boxes, in the 2016 report, they were showing 18%, and in the new report, 10%. So that's the area, it's in the listed sector that you have the biggest problem with regard to ownership. The other sectors, the private sector, you basically, and the generic sectors like the real estate, you're basically staying the same. Again, same thing with management control, 4.9% within the listed sector, 1.9% in the recent report. Same thing with skills development. Actually, I lied. Skills development is the only one that's actually gotten better. Because one of the things that the listed environment has realized is that these big corporates, they have to start developing the skills. Otherwise, they're going to fall short with regard to their own skills within their company. So they've actually increased to 5% from nothing 3 years ago. Okay, so let's get into the property sector and what it's all about and how you as an individual can benefit from the sector. So as you said, 5.8 trillion rand, that is 12 zeros, people. That is a lot of money. 5.8 trillion rand that the sector is worth and growing. Every time a house is built, that number goes up a little bit. Every time a new industrial complex is built, that number goes up a bit. There's a complex being built by Atterbury on the corner of the N7 and can't remember the name of the other road now, but if you go down the N7, you'll see a massive new industrial complex being built there. That's 10 billion rand being added to that number. There's another new complex going to happen in town, 11 billion rand. That's a residential complex that's going to be built in town on the foreshore. So there's lots of development just here in Cape Town that's happening, that's adding billions of rands onto that number on an annual basis. So there's a massive opportunity for you to become involved in the property sector. Residential, that's the one that most people go for because it's the easiest one to get involved in. The commercial sector and all the others are a bit more complicated. Residential, you build a house, you build a block of flats, you rent it out, boom, you've got some money going. 58 million people, that's how many people we have in this country. Then you start leveraging things like the ABSA's got I don't like to advertise banks, but they've got a product where after you've bought 2 houses and you're getting rental income from those 2 houses, they will then lend you money to buy more property without you proving your own income. They will look at that area that you want to invest in, and they will say, oh, that area you can get about 3,000 rands worth of rental. We'll give you a bond of 300,000, based purely on the fact that you could potentially get a 3,000 rand rental income there. So once you get into the market and you get rolling, your bank will support you in terms of building your portfolio. But be careful as to where you invest, how you invest, and your timing. Educate yourself. Educate yourself. Educate yourself. I thank you.
Thank you so much. Lavuya, thank you for the invitation. Nsiki, Nigel, I must say you're a very good speaker. I think you're in the wrong profession. Also, Livel Des from Alan Gray, the representative from Old Mutual, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be here, to be part of this conversation. Because This conversation is central to the growth of our economy. It's central to the growth of the sector. And a few days ago, we all know and we've all seen the quarterly report released by, what is it now? The labor, about the unemployment in our country. It's very depressing. I personally feel that our country is in that phase where things are first going to get worse before it gets better. So it should be of concern to all of us that 29% of our people in this country are unemployed. And also this far in our democracy, 25 years later, it is also clear that transformation has been happening at a very, very slow pace. Earlier this week, President Ramaphosa said in his feedback on the interventions that have been implemented stemming from the job summit, time and time again, that the key to success in our country is partnerships. Partnership between the private sector and the public sector, because government cannot do it alone. But another reason why the partnership is important, Luvio, is because the private sector can get things done much quicker. The bureaucracy in government can be sometimes painlessly slow. So, in terms of transformation of the construction and property industries, as government, we have committed to the property charter. I'm sure you all know. And so government is funding the Property Sector Charter Council. We make funding available to the Property Sector Charter Council.
Thank you. I'll answer the questions directed to me, starting with the last one first. The building regulations and the bylaws that people have to comply with, we need to have more building inspectors out there. In Cape Town, while I was the mayor, there were a number of people who built without building plans. They complete the building and then afterwards we find out. But the bylaw is designed in such a way that that person pays a fine and then they get regularized. In some instance where a building has been built even over the border of another plot, then if you want to take on that owner, you have to go to court to get a demolition order. And sometimes getting a demolition order can take another 2 years. So there are many instances where people are building illegally, and it's best, that is in the domain of the city of Cape Town. The building inspectors report to them and they must enforce the bylaws. And it's wrong for people just to add more units. Because what has happened, especially in that part of Khayelitsha, Elita Park, you'll find that because the area was built and designed for a specific number of people, there are now 3 times more people in the area. And that leads to the bulk works, the sewerage work, the pipes bursting, can't carry the capacity. So that is why the built environment must be controlled and monitored by inspectors. The second person, I'll give you my email address so that you can look into the specifics of the particular case. I have to see if it's national owned land or provincially owned land or local government owned land, but if it's within my department, I can certainly assist you, but I'll give you my email address now. To assist SMEs to buy properties is that I must go go and check. You know, I'm also new there. I'm only there for 2 months. And I will go and check and see, you know, if there's any assistance available in public works. I know there are a number of startups that we've now started to help people in the construction industry. But I'm not going to lie to you, I really don't know, so I have to go and look into it. When you have a piece of land that you bought and you are not using, the moment that land is on your name, you have to start paying rates and taxes even if you don't live there. And it's also your responsibility to clear and keep the plot clean. So my advice to people always being to try and close it up so it doesn't become an illegal dumping site, because then the council will send a fine to you. So empty pieces of land, and there are lots of them around the city of Cape Town, privately owned land, where people are using it as illegal dumping sites, and it's actually become a safety hazard. So it is up to the private owner then to take responsibility for your own land. Speeding up land reform, the land reform program. You know what is the current situation? I'm going to transfer at least 100 pieces of land this year for land restitution. During those years when government used to forcibly remove our people, they then just used to give the land to the municipalities, or they used to give it to national land, to national department. So currently local government, national government and provincial government are sitting as the owners of land that was taken away from people 60, 70 years ago. And I found in the department 100 pieces of land that must go back for land restitution purposes. And when I made inquiries, you find that the reason why this land is still on the book of public works is because of the National Land Claims Commission has not completed their processes, which is verification of the family tree and all of those things. But how can it take them 10, 15 years to do that? So I've now taken a decision together with my department. We're going to transfer that land in our possession to the Regional Land Claims Commission so that we don't get blamed for sitting with land that's supposed to be given back to the rightful owners. So the whole land claims and restitution has been painfully slow over the years. The painful thing is that many people die before they get their land back. So that is why I'm saying land reform is also land distribution and land restitution. Well, the issue about encouraging people to move out of Guguletu or Bonteheuwel or Athlone, one is the issue of choice. But if there's alternatives where people can go to, that they can choose that I want to go and live in Woodstock because I can afford to rent a flat or something there. It's just that the choice is not there. People don't have the choice. People are actually forced to live in those crowding conditions because there are no good alternatives. But there's also a gap in the market. You know, we cannot wait alone on government to build RDP houses because you're only entitled to a RDP house if you qualify. You must earn less than 3,500 a month. If you own more, you don't qualify, even though you are on the council's waiting list. But there is another method. That is what they call the gap market. The people that earn more than 3,500 up to 15,000. There are lots of social housing companies now accredited that are building rental units, very safe spaces, especially for single-headed households, and that is to fill that gap market. So it is very important that we begin to build and give people that choice, whether they want to own an RDP house that you get today. There's no value in that thing. The quality, most of the time, it's poor. So then younger people want to make a choice. I want to live closer to my work. I'm looking for an affordable housing closer. And that is why it is so important that we develop those spaces so that we can give people anywhere the choice as to where to live. Thank you so much.